One of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to controversies and drama is, honestly, the lack of research people do before they start spitting out a narrative, preaching like it's gospel when in reality there is no substantial hard proof for whatever they claim. This happened to one such VTuber named Apricot Froot, who is a member of the company VShojo, and she has received so much hate and rumors over the past year that it's a little baffling to me, and I can only imagine what it's like to somebody else who doesn't know a lick about VTubers. Personally, I'm not a diehard fan or anything. I only know of her and seen some clips on occasion, but even I think the hate directed her way is undeserved and often has no substantial backing to speak of. But these dedicated haters once again rear their ugly heads in full force when, on September 18th, 2024, Froot released a document titled, "I want to share a piece of myself with you for a moment." This document is 90 pages long, but a good majority is just screenshots, and gives evidence and context for the mistreatment and verbal abuse she received from her ex-partner back in 2017 and 2018, when she was just 19. Just a heads up before we continue, content warning for mentions of misogyny, homophobia, sexual assault, domestic violence, and verbal abuse. Without further ado, let's continue. The response to this document was divided, with many in support of Froot, especially from her peers. But for the side that is against Froot, it was absolutely appalling. It's perhaps the most targeted hate campaign I've seen for any VTuber, and trust me, I've seen a ton of drama posts. There is just so much hateful vitriolic filth thrown into both the quote retweets and replies of her post, saying things that equate to either claiming that she cheated with anywhere from 1 to 5 men, all of which no proof by the way, or that the people defending Froots are all NTR lovers. And, of course, we can't forget the fun, misogynistic memes such as claiming women are unable to take accountability, and my god, I can practically smell the stank body odor from these unwashed, disgusting incels as they mash away at their keyboards. It even got to a point where a few individuals were making lists of other well-known VTubers, publicly demonizing them for verbally supporting Froot. Like, imagine having literally nothing better to do in your life than to go and make a hate list claiming that everyone on there supports adultery, when y'all got no actual proof of cheating and are only spreading a rumor around like it's high school. And the worst part of all this, because of these trolling, hateful chucklefucks, you even had bigger influencers from outside the VTuber sphere, such as Asmongold, make wrong calls about the situation that just made it even worse.
And people actually, there were apparently a dozen or so people that actually read all 90 pages. And after they looked into it, they found out that, in fact, she was the one that had cheated on her husband while he was on deployment. So if you look at the engagements here, let's read some of these. And I'd be pretty mad too if my wife 5 different men instead of me. She put out a twit longer begging for attention and looking for approval for cheating on her fucking husband. It's crazy.
You can tell from his clip that he had absolutely no idea what was going on whatsoever and only perpetuated the narrative because he couldn't be asked to do his research. Which, you know, I don't expect Asmongold of all people to be the shining knight in armor to do research on a woman's troubles, but this is exactly why I have issues with people who just see something, parrot something because that's what's first or big to show up on their radar, and not even skim through it themselves. So, my dear viewers, I will go ahead and walk you through Froot's document myself and reveal to you the truth within. You will find that there is absolutely no cheating from Froot mentioned whatsoever in this document. There is, however, threats of her ex-partner wanting to cheat on her instead, all because she refused to say yes to losing her V-card for a particular intimate act. Presumably one of the up-the-butt nature. Of course, if you're a dedicated hater and have not already been typing up a hate-filled comment by now, you're probably not going to change your mind anyway upon hearing this information and the subsequent section. So, kindly do us all a favor and just see yourself out. Pretty sure my Tumblr girly vibes are practically oozing out of me once I called these dumb fucks stupid incels. Like, ooh, fear my Tumblr energy. I love Tumblr sexy men. Ooh. Anyway, jokes aside, link to Froot's document is below. I highly recommend taking a look at it yourself as I will not be going over every single screenshot, but we will be going through most of it. Also, for brevity, though I am very much a yapper, you are always welcome to pause to read the screenshots in the video as we go through them. After we go over Froot's document, there will be a section dedicated to further allegations beyond the scope of the document and my opinions on them. I implore you to watch through everything regardless of how long this video will be before commenting. Without further ado, let's begin. Froot's document begins as such, and remember that screenshots must be read bottom to top because this is from Facebook's archive feature. This is a message to myself and a constant reminder of how strong I've become in the past half-decade. I hope by showing others what I've been able to overcome can help people who are or have been in a similar situation. I've pushed this off for a long time because it has always been an extremely difficult topic for me to uncover. I have been healing for a very long time. When I was 19, I was abused by my then partner. How did I end up being stuck in an abusive relationship? Abusers don't start out the door with their behavior. They pretend to care about you and act like a good person so you don't leave. They start feeding you their abuse bit by bit until you're completely destroyed and unable to leave, locked in and nowhere else to go. They use emotional blackmail and manipulate you to eventually fully depend on them and make you believe you can't do or be anything without them. They make you feel incapable of being a functional human and you will believe them. Once you're in this stage, the entire relationship becomes complete control over every aspect of your life: who you talk to, who your friends are, what you wear, how you look, how you talk, your opinions, interests, and beliefs. Everything. He would constantly degrade me, insult me, lie to me. I tried to leave him on numerous occasions, but he kept threatening to unalive and blame it on me. He emotionally blackmailed me, manipulated me, isolated me from my family, forced me to develop dependence on him. I didn't eat. I didn't wash. I wore the same set of pajamas for weeks. I didn't move out of my bed and I lived in trash. He caused me to become depressed. I want to preface that I am doing much better now. Green is Froot, blue is her ex. And briefly pausing here to say, yes, abusers often don't show their true colors until they feel comfortable, usually often after they have already managed to isolate you or find ways to chip at you until they can make you feel dependent on them. Abusers also often only show this side to a person behind closed doors, so they will never publicly appear this way or admit to such a thing. That is why having evidence is so strong for situations like this. Froot's document then continues with starting off how she got SA'd at the airport. I was on my way to America to see him. I had to stay overnight in an airport in Sweden. During my stay there, I was unfortunately SA'd by a stranger. It was 1 a.m. and I had been traveling all day. I had no choice but to choose a bench to sleep on at the airport. I was already uneasy about it, but the fact that I saw many other people sleeping there made me feel a little bit safer. While I was sleeping, I woke up to a stranger SAing me. When this was happening, the only other person I talked to was my ex because, as you know, at the time, I had nobody to go to other than him, since he isolated me away from my family. His response was not what I'd expect from someone in his position. I was 19 at the time and I thought this is how hard life is and that I have to suck it up and deal with it, which is what he taught me and is why I thought nothing of his response. The screenshots then show that Froot reached out to her partner in a panic, explaining the situation, her fears, and anxiety. This makes sense. At the time, she trusted him. She was going to visit him after all. His response to all this after taking hours to get back to her? A sad face. Oh, F, he says. He then asks if it was a public area and then another emoji. Really? This is all the guy had to say to his partner who nearly got graped? Man. Froot ends this section with, the biggest reason why I'm reacting this way is an issue is because later on he would use this as an example of how much he's done for me. In future arguments, he would say that he supported me when I went through this to get a leg up on me and use it as an example of how he went the extra mile for me when I don't reciprocate regarding unrelated things in his eyes. Which you can see in the next screenshot, she shares that this guy is so full of himself. He says, "Who bought you a plane ticket last minute with no planning whatsoever because I effed up, but you refused to leave the airport? Me. Who got molested at said airport because of the unplanned tickets I got you? You. But who was instantly there to give you some sort of help and advice at a moment's notice? That's right, me. I can keep on going, but when I reverse the list to see what you've done for me, when you've been there for me, you know to do your basic responsibilities as a wife. Let's see." The previous screenshots show that, no, he was not instantly there. Froot sent her messages at 2 a.m. He didn't get back to her until 5 a.m. And his advice was literally just sad emojis. Bro was so full of himself he couldn't remember the events straight, which is the first instance we see of gaslighting. And trust me, it only gets worse from here. The next section in Froot's document is where she had to choose between unconsensual intimate acts or getting cheated on. My ex was adamant on trying a form of passionate hugging. I constantly said no. Even when he made jokes about it, I was still serious in saying no. He didn't respect my decision. When I went offline, after I tell him no a number of times and expressed my disappointment with his statements, he still painted me as the one in the wrong for not being comfortable with him pushing my boundaries. The next day, I woke up to his messages implying he wanted to unalive over me exercising autonomy over my own body. There's screenshots where her ex starts to verbally abuse Froot for denying him an intimate act with, "Oh yeah, so lucky. I end up with a woman who won't try something everyone else tries." Which is already ew vibes. It gets worse with him trying to gaslight her into believing that she said yes at one point, to which Froot stands her ground saying no, she never did. Then he tries to guilt trip her by saying she's not going the extra mile for him, and then he says he's gonna get that particular intimate act one day, most likely when she's dead. Which, honestly, I've seen enough true crime to feel that this is more of a threat, honestly. But continuing on, he calls her a chicken, continues to try and manipulate her into getting his carnal desire fulfilled, keeps getting denied so he calls her a baby instead, and then bitches about only getting one woman in society even though he had an ex-wife before Froot, so technically he had at least 2 women. And overall is not listening to her when she says no means no. Froot comments here that, "We are not equal like we assumed we were. You never once saw me as an equal. If I was equal to you, then you would respect my boundaries, and when I say no, it means no." And this is so true. In a healthy relationship where both partners respect each other, if one partner is uncomfortable and does not want to proceed, then that should be that. Don't press it any further. What this guy is doing is trash toxic behavior. This next particular section honestly speaks a lot for itself. He's trying to guilt trip her by saying, "Telling you'll leave me because you cannot provide something I want," as if it's a bad thing. But like, bro, if it's a deal breaker for you, then yes, you should leave each other. If you want one thing so badly that you must have it in your lifetime with a partner and the one that you currently have says no, then respect that and go find another person who's willing to do the thing that you want. It's not that hard. And Froot's behavior here is completely justified and right, calling him a dickhole because this guy is being a massive donkey. He continues having his tantrum and being toxic, saying he'll rescind his statement of love, whatever the heck that means, and calls her selfish even though he's being the selfish one who won't listen to his partner who's supposed to be his equal. Also, him saying, "Oh, it's just a joke, but wow, now I'm afraid," is just so stupid. What the hell? He then does that common tactic that some abusers do, which is threaten to unalive because he's not getting his way. Not a big fan. Had this done on me twice, and the best thing to do in this case, personally, cut them out of your life. Much happier after I stopped being exposed to BS. Because, lo and behold, both those people that did this to me are fine and dandy. But anyway, I just feel bad that Froot had to deal with this, and this is still not even a third of the way through the document. Anyway, he continues to complain and whine, and he tries to make this disagreement bigger than it is. He threatens to leave her if she won't have kids with him, and then says in the next minute that he'll find another woman to do this one particular intimate act, which again, I feel like it's doing the butt stuff. In a different screenshot, this time jumping to January 2018, he threatens to sleep with other women, to which Froot says they can't be together if he does that, and honestly, he just says weird shit as if he's hot stuff. Nah, gross. Froot then talks about her dyslexia with the following. "So my dyslexia causes me to have working memory loss. It can sometimes affect my life, but it's nothing too serious. I will struggle to remember a date unless I write it down or other people remind me. Working memory is the capacity to store information in an individual's temporary memory in order to perform a task. This posed a problem in my relationship with my ex-abuser. This was before I got an official diagnosis for dyslexia, and because I had no real proof of being dyslexic at the time, he would gaslight me into thinking I'm just stupid and lazy. Dyslexia does not affect your intelligence. He would use words like slow, stupid, R-word, dumb. He claimed that I was just trying to find excuses and crutches for forgetting to do something for him, all the while I was across the ocean studying for my degree in university. He refused to believe me, so I went out and saw a psychologist and got an official diagnosis. After I came back with real proof this time, he was then upset about how life isn't fair for him and how he just couldn't have a normal functioning partner. This still did not stop him from gaslighting me into thinking I'm stupid. Screenshots prove that he did, indeed, belittle her, calling her magically R-word to suit her needs, and then complaining that he wanted a competent wife and not someone who'd blame it on something every time, to which Froot says that she has never once used it as an excuse. The next section is about when Froot watched a Yuri anime called Citrus, which is about two girls falling in love. It turns out her ex-partner is a raging homophobe, who considered gayness to be a mental disorder, insinuating that being gay is not normal, and uses stupid rhetoric like that's not the way nature created us, and calling it unscientific to be gay, and just overall homophobic as hell. When she doesn't cave to his opinion, he insults her, telling her to quote, "get lost in the swamp with the rest of good-for-nothings." Froot concludes this section with, "He will be a raging homophobe, and because I don't agree with it, he will use this tactic to brainwash me." He said that me engaging with LGBT content threatened his career in the US Army, and eventually after 2 hours of emotional manipulation, I gave in. This is how he eventually managed to skew all of my opinions and views into becoming a carbon copy of his. I wanted to avoid abuse every way that I could. This happened every time I wanted to talk about my interests that didn't align with his. The next screenshot shows him emphasizing he prioritizes his intimate life just as much as love, and that he cannot truly love Froot if she cannot match his desires. The next section was in regards to this marriage, since many have called Froot and her ex husband and wife. She clarifies this with, "That whole thing wasn't a real marriage. There was no wedding, no ceremony, no dress, no vows. I was alone, I had been stripped away from my family, stripped of my hobbies, my interests, my opinions, my confidence, my self-esteem. I had nothing left but him because he made sure of that. He made me choose between him and my family and made me scared to think for myself. I had no one. I traveled alone for the first time to America at the age of 19, and it was at his home when I had nowhere to go and no way of getting myself home when he asked me to marry him. I didn't want to, but I also didn't want to know what was going to happen if I said no, so I pressured myself into saying yes on the spot. My family hated me. I hated me. He made me believe I was incapable of living without him. He molded me into his pocket housewife. I never wanted any of this. I had only been dating him for less than a year at that point. I didn't want to have to deal with whatever happened if I refused, so I signed the paper. I was no longer a human being anymore. I was my abuser's property. He had full control of me now. Now he knew I couldn't leave even when I lived in another country because I was now legally binded with this man and his abuse with me worsened. I was stuck. I felt a massive amount of shame and embarrassment of myself over this. This is the biggest regret I forced myself to repress over the years. I don't consider it a chapter of my life, but a nightmare that lasted for too long. Now, I don't consider myself having ever been married, but instead I view it as a traumatic event. At the time this happened, I still never viewed it as a marriage. I only ever referred to him as my boyfriend, and I have never referred to someone as my husband because it wasn't what I wanted. He used me. In the US Army, you are required to live in the barracks on base. If you marry and have a family, you can move out of the barracks off base and have your own house. He used me so he could keep the house he acquired by marrying his ex-wife. I didn't live with him. Everything in that house was his. He lived by himself, a comfortable life in that house alone. He just exploited me for his personal gain. I was never in the picture, just a checkbox on a list. And personally, I got no idea about anything regarding the US Army and how their life works with a partner. There are also no further details regarding the document that Froot had signed and if it was resolved legally since then. But at the very least, morally and in my opinion, I do not qualify this as a genuine marriage. She essentially got coerced into signing a document when she was young and naive and in a foreign land to her. Also, keep in mind that while her ex-partner was in the military in the US, Froot is from England. Whatever happens in the military in the US is not defending her country because, well, the USA is not the UK. Not a hard thing to wrap your head around. The next section is about how she wasn't allowed to have friends. When I was living in my student house with the 6 other uni students, they liked to throw house parties in our house. After all, it was a very large house with 7 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. The parties were just your average university young people party, but everyone who attended was a nerd or weeb from the anime club. I wanted to join in and drink in my own house with my friends, but my ex disapproved of this. These parties happened about 3 to 4 times per year, so barely ever. I remember retreating to my room during every party because my ex was blowing up my phone and insulting me for hanging out with my own friends in my own house. I remember breaking down in front of my friends because of the emotional blackmail he would use on me to get me to leave every social situation. And if it weren't obvious from the previous screenshots, her ex seems extremely manipulative and wanted her attention around the clock 24/7 whenever it was convenient for him. The next section is how he tried to join their bank accounts early in their relationship. Froot says, "The relationship had just begun and I was still living with my parents while studying at university. My mom was in control of my bank account at that time. He insisted we join bank accounts. This was an early sign of abuse because it was the first time he attempted to gain control over me. I wanted to run it by my mom first. As I declined, he then took his frustration out on me." Screenshots demonstrate that he was pressuring her to join their finances together. In the next screenshot, Froot's mother weighs in with an accurate assessment of the situation. "I'll tell you what she told me though. She said that you are controlling. It will get worse the longer our relationship progresses. She doesn't want to see me take shit from you and constantly trying to defend myself. It's bullying, as I've told you in previous arguments, and that people like you never change. She doesn't want me to be in a controlling relationship like this and constantly living in the shadow of your ex-wife as you compare me to her. She's not letting me go to America anymore because now she's worried about what you might do to me if we were to have an argument like this in person. She said that this is a form of domestic abuse and that no man should treat me like this. For the relationship to work, we have to respect one another. We have to approach each other as equals because what she sees is empowerment." And her ex's response to this? "Not gonna bother then." Froot continues with, "He noticed how my mom got in the way of his plans, so after this he manipulated me into choosing him over her and making me cut off communication with her and made her look like the bad guy to me. My relationship with my mom never fully resolved after this entire thing." And it's hard when you're blinded by emotions in youth to not be able to rationalize this situation accurately. At the very least though, it was good that her mother weighed in at the time and hopefully this spared Froot from what could have been an even messier situation if their finances were actually joined. By the way fellas, rushing into joining financial accounts when starting a relationship is a huge red flag in my opinion. It can lead to extremely messy situations legally when separations occur, so just keep that in mind. Froot's next section is regarding an example of verbal abuse, but this time in a situation where she had to make a bowl of instant ramen. She said, "For context, I had told him I needed to go make a bowl of instant noodles. Back in 2017, I was a uni student sharing a student-rented home with 5 other students and my brother. The gas stove that we shared was broken. The fire would not ignite and none of us had a lighter at the time. I was AFK for 40 minutes to fix my stove and make my food. My ex did not approve of me being away for so long and blew up on me. He verbally berated me, insulted my intelligence, and manipulated me into believing I was in the wrong. He also took offense to the fact that I asked my housemates to help with the stove before him while he lived across the ocean. Of course, I would ask them to help me fix it before anyone else. His verbal abuse happened almost every day and will last for hours, even days." The screenshots go on to show that he's trying to call her disrespectful, and how dare she not be at his beck and call at every waking hour and choose to ask her friends and roommates about the physical stove situation than some guy across the ocean. He then proceeds to insult her intelligence, mock her just like a bully would, and extrapolates the situation to being, "Guess everything will be a struggle with you," and further degrade her into basically calling her incompetent that if she can't work a stove, how is she going to work a vacuum? He calls her slow, and the moment she calls him an ass, he seems defensive that she's calling him names, as if he wasn't spending the past few minutes previously insulting her every which way possible. Like, I need to pause here real quick to say that this guy is a huge donkey and an awful human being. This is not at all how you communicate with your partner. This is not at all how you communicate with even a good friend. If it is, well, have you ever considered seeing a professional? Because this is toxic as all hell, and I'm sure people like this guy are pleasant as any social gathering. But God, I'm so angry and I feel so bad that Froot had to endure this, and this was only just one example out of presumably many situations that she chose to share with us. Continuing on though, there's more screenshots where he claims he's patient with her, even though he's not. And then he tries gaslighting and manipulating her further, trying to make her feel bad, and that he's such a wonderful individual who is practically there for her like some savior, though he's done no saving in these screenshots. Another section shows evidence of when he kicked her out when she was visiting him in the US, all because he took her to a shooting range, and she just wanted to watch him shoot and not participate. He was furious that Froot was reluctant to shoot his gun and refused to speak to her for 2 days. He embarrassed her in public in front of his friends over something so minor. Since this happened in person, the screenshots are from after they talked about it. In these screenshots, he says he didn't know what he was doing, sad face, and then deflects after being pushed on the issue that I'm only human, we all make mistakes. Yo, brother, you want me to tell you what isn't a mistake? Domestic abuse. Kicking out your partner to leave them stranded outside in a country they don't live in for a few days is, surprise, surprise, abusive behavior. And to further drive the point home that nothing Froot did would ever please this guy, there's a section about how one night a friend had visited us and needed a place to sleep, so I used that night to socialize with them while I was texting my ex at the same time. I had planned to make dinner, then take a nap, and then video call my ex before the day ended. Even though my ex knew about this, he decided to start an argument about it for having a friend present and not wanting to video call him at that exact moment, and that he basically wanted to call me regardless of who was around me. I'm only including a portion of the conversations because his arguments will last for hours, even days. It can be exhausting to read through. And these screenshots show the situation where he's upset that after her mother is out of the picture, he's not getting his attention because of friends, and immediately guilt trips her with, "Guess I'll just stay silent when I'm in public with you." He continues to be upset that she's not showing him off to her friends. So, Froot does comply and has a voice call with him around her friends and tells him their positive comments about him. His reaction? Oh, and immediately worried about their privacy and that apparently another guy saying his voice sounds like it could be a voice actor is hella gay. Truly, you can never win, and this is so frustrating because even if you listen to what the abuser has to say, they'll find any way to turn it against you. The next section is about how her ex told her that she was ugly without makeup on and overall just berating her physical appearance. This is not something a loving partner would ever do to their loved one. Froot's self-image was torn down and gave her depression, and he'd often threaten to break up with her whenever things never went her way. She gives an example of one such instance in early 2018. In her document, she says, "It breaks my heart to read the past me talking about not wanting to live. I'm grateful for getting away from all this and being alive today and given an opportunity to become my real self. The experience has changed the way I take in the world, and I have slowly been coming back out of my shell. I have all of my friends, my family, my community, and VShojo to thank for that." The next section is about how he tried to get her to leave university, to which she thankfully stood her ground and did not. The last section is about how her ex would often compare her to his supposedly awful ex-wife and equate her to being just as bad. Froot says that she's been a twin all her life and she doesn't like to be compared to another individual. In these screenshots, you can see just how awful this guy acts, essentially berating an already damaged individual just to feel better about himself. She concludes the document with, "I have much more proof of the abuse I faced back then, but I have been trying to make this document for a whole year now, and I've decided there is no value in putting my time and energy into this anymore. I am closing this chapter of my life. I have finally been able to come to terms with what happened and would like to move on. This is closure for myself. I would like to focus on continuing to bring music, art, gaming, content to my community, and that is all I wish to do. After these events, I now suffer from depression and increased levels of anxiety and agoraphobia. I struggle to deal with friends and family getting too close to me and often drift away in fear of getting hurt again. The home I self-isolate in is my safe space, and VTubing, drawing art, making music, playing games is what I have found enjoyment in. I know how valuable time is and I won't take up too much of yours. Don't let others judge how you view people. Make judgments on your own terms and by your own experiences. Thank you." And that is the last of her document. And honestly, after having gone through all this, having read all these screenshots myself, I find it baffling that anyone could ever take this as anything more than Froot gave us evidence of just how awful her ex-partner was. The only criticism I could give about this entire situation is that she dredged up something from 6 years ago, essentially airing out dirty laundry on something that should have been long forgotten to the past and moved on. If she were just any other person. But given all the hate and wrongful rumors about her past that she had to endure for well over a year, all because she obsessed some people during the wizard game situation because she wasn't defending a co-worker Silvervale when Silvervale messed up and never properly addressed the situation when her mods banned people for saying the phrase trans rights or human rights when Silvervale was playing the Harry Potter game, which led to a whole debacle that I'm not going to get into in this video. I can understand why after so long of being slandered and staying silent, Froot compiled this document and shared this with us to clear the air and get closure for herself. The fact that so many people were spreading essentially false rumors about how this document is about her cheating when there was no instance of such a thing in the document is wild. The rampant misogyny and people essentially saying hypothetical, unproved cheating is worse than actual abuse is mind-boggling. And by the way, abuse doesn't just have to be physical. Abuse can be emotional. Emotional abuse is a fucking thing. So I'll give you my opinion about this entire situation. Her ex-partner is an awful human being, a literal waste of oxygen, a sad sack of meat. What he did to her once he got his talons into her was not, at all, acts of love. It is not romantic. It is not healthy. It is not even appropriate, even if they were only friends. Good, healthy relationships, both platonic, romantic, sexual, whatever, should not be like this at all. If it is, please, I hope you can come to understand that this is not okay. This is not healthy. No one should have to endure anything when you're with somebody. If you feel like you're constantly tiptoeing around, trying to watch what you say or what you do to avoid being hurt, that is not healthy to be in. That being said, it's also understandably hard to leave an abusive situation. When you're stuck with somebody, you may feel a bit of responsibility, an urge to take care of them, to change them, to see if things get better. Or it may be that leaving is physically impossible. The abuser could be violent, they could hurt you, they may control things that are important in the aspect of leaving, such as access to shelter, food, or finances. In these cases, this is difficult, and this is often why so many people who are victims in abusive situations can't or find it difficult to leave. In Froot's case, yes, they were oceans apart at times, but she was in an emotional tie with this man. She was young, just 19 at the time when everything happened. And I don't know how old this guy was, but he acted in a way where he tried to have the upper hand in everything. Froot was naive and young and made her mistakes and suffered consequences for trying to love this hurtful individual through it all. But nothing she did here ever seemed to insinuate that she ever had the upper hand or anything negative to do in this relationship. If anything, I commend Froot for standing her ground in this situation where she could, because through it all, she still had a strong spirit that shone through. This entire relationship she was in, if it can even be called a relationship, was one-sided in the man's favor, and she was just a pocket wife to help him get what he wanted, which was not to lose his house while in the army for a country that she doesn't even live in, that he wasn't even protecting for her. So, to all these chucklefucks who think that even if she did actually cheat, which again, there is no hard evidence for, they're essentially thinking that the emotional abuse and the traumatizing events she endured is excusable. Effing disgusting. To me, cheating is bad. I went no contact with one of my older sisters because she cheated on her husband, my then brother-in-law. But in my opinion, cheating is only cheating if the relationship there was, for an extended point, mostly loving and healthy and on equal footing. Being berated by your partner, insulted, demeaned, and forced to change your political opinions to be molded into his just to stop the insults is not love. It is not healthy. It is not equal. This quote relationship was loveless and doomed. Not to mention this guy himself has said multiple times that he would cheat on her just to get an intimate act that she wouldn't give up. The response to it by these people is honestly just misogyny. You know it's bad when I make one thread post basically calling out these people and all those people decided to hurl misogynistic insults at me, such as calling me an abuser and predator. Even though where the F did predator even come from, stupid ass, called me the R word and calling me a whore as if it means something. And all because I and Froot are women. This is how I know these people are nothing but misogynistic pieces of slime, wastes of oxygen in this world, doing nothing but being hurtful leeches on the internet just for some sick gratification. I, for one, cannot even be considered a whore because your girl is asexual and I ain't never touched none of that stuff, hell nah. But even if I had slept with somebody, so what? It's frankly not anyone's business, and calling someone a whore in this manner is nothing but meant to be demeaning. And all these people, who I've blocked already by the way, you know what's in their profiles? Nothing but objectifying women, liking fetishized porn art, and treating women as if they're nothing but property, and to only be used for sex and baby making. And of course, you can't forget about alt-right neo-Nazi political posts. Absolutely disgusting. I know Twitter's a shithole, but I swear it's been even more prevalent under Elon's ownership, SMH. Anyway, my rant aside, there are some things I have to address for cohesiveness regarding the entire Fruit situation outside of this document. Regarding the Harry Potter game situation, the haters that spawned there came from people who claimed that Fruit threw Silvervale under the bus and that she's a terrible friend. If that were true though, then why does Silvervale still follow Fruits even after having already left VShojo? There were also some alleged screenshots from one man who claimed to have been involved in the Fruit cheating allegations, and it's only one individual, mind you. This person seems adverse to having their name continuously dragged back to this Fruit situation, so for my own video, I'll be censoring their name, just to help them out a teeny bit with the whole, quote, drama tuber nonsense. But anyway, there seems to be about 2 screenshots here. One where this person and Fruit were talking about muscle spasms after presumably sexting, and later about how they felt led on and Fruit admitting to her mistake. However, keep this in mind that when they initially got closer and probably had some online fun times together, Fruit was not in a relationship with her ex. She might have gotten back together at some point after January for a bit, but there is no further evidence that Fruit and this person were continuously doing intimate things on the side if she did go back before finally cutting things off permanently with her ex-partner. She apologized to the man and explained herself, and honestly, I can see the guy being upset for essentially being used as a rebound and felt wronged by it. Personally, I think he was a bit bitter about it, because you can see in how he types here that the drama has run its course, and that for his sanity he wants it buried, and that he, quote, was just eager to defend myself against a bigger person who had a lot more pull than me, I suppose. To me, it sounds like he spilled the beans not out of good faith, but more to try to take Fruit down as revenge for breaking his heart. He regrets it now, seeing how it didn't exactly go in his favor, and now he wants to distance himself from it. His not quite final post, but final-ish enough opinion about it is, both sides can eat each other alive for all I care because it's clear both her and her ex are shitty people that I had the misfortune of getting mixed up with. Speaking of Fruit and her ex, there was also some screenshot evidence left from the Facebook days when all this took place back in 2018 or so. For a bit of context, these two apparently ran a patchwork shop called Apricot and Sync Patchworks, and this company's name includes both parts of their online pseudonames. Her post reads, "Will delete later. I would never resort to using Facebook to talk about my personal life, it's just not what I do. But now, the situation I've been put in, I am honestly disgusted that I have to. Her ex is making out that I had slept with another man. I did not. Let's start from the beginning, shall we? What I post online regarding Apricot and Sync Patchworks is all kept in this fake persona. I do not post what goes on behind the scenes. It's not for the internet to see, but as my personal issues have been made public by him, I have no choice. Now, during the start of my relationship with her ex, things went fine. We got along, as you do when you're interested in someone. Just under a year into the relationship, he started to show his true colors. To start off, he disrespected my parents. They did no wrong. They originally loved him. But he was an ass to my mother. I was a naive girl who was so blinded by love that I just followed him around all the time. Now he wanted to see me in the summer, so he suggested that I go to America to see him. I've never once left the country, so that was a big if for me. To make it short, he ended up making me choose between my family and him or else he would leave me. I went to America, of course. My parents are amazing people, and I will never, ever stay with someone who makes me choose between them or my parents again. A few months passed and his deployment came up. He started to stop showing love to me. He was always giving me shit for messing up on the smallest of things, constantly telling me how much of a terrible person I was, but I never understood why. I lost all self-esteem because I was being told this every single day. I have dyslexia. It does not affect my IQ, however it affects my memory a lot. I can easily forget things, small things, but he did not believe this. He thought it was me trying to get out of being a fuck-up. Me just being stupid. He would never stop telling me that I was just stupid, that I was incapable of doing anything. He made me believe I was actually incapable of doing absolutely anything, to the point where I just looked at him like he was the only person who would ever put up with me. A lot of this I forgave. I am easily forgiving, and no doubt I will forgive him for spreading lies publicly like the child he is. At the start of this year, I had developed depression because of this relationship. I was stuck in a relationship that meant I received no love, no affection. I was expected to be there every single hours of his days. I was expected to absolutely everything for him. I hated myself so much I was disgusted to even wake up, not being able to leave because he claims that he will off himself if I leave. I got so depressed that I was constantly looking at him for support that was not given. I had tried so goddamn hard to work through the relationship, to hopefully pick everything up, but he decided to leave me. This would have been the second time that he left me, and both times I had crawled right back. The second time he did not take me back. This only dug my hole deeper, and I drank all my problems. I drank away all the pain. I had a friend at this time that I would vent to. I would vent all of my problems to him. He was someone who showed me he genuinely cared, offered me support, something my ex had stopped giving to me a long time ago. I was so effed up, so heavily influenced by alcohol, so depressed, so stuck. I let it all get to my head and I became so desperate. I said things to my friend that I regret, but that's all that happened. I just said stupid things. My ex-partner was willing to forgive me. He mentioned that he himself had actually cheated on his ex-wife, the woman he married before me. He said that we all make mistakes, but now he is trying to get everyone to hate me. He's starting to play his manipulative games that he plays, the ones I've been trying to get away from this whole time. I'm not looking for pity. I feel like people who have been lied to and deserve to know the truth needs to know. There's probably so much I have missed out because I either forgot or forgave. It overall sounds pretty much like what she wrote up in her document, but now that we see a clearer picture of what it was like behind the scenes, she honestly kept it really tame back then. In the olden years, revealing screenshots was kind of not really done as much as it is now. Nowadays, proof is everything, because false accusations have been so rampant in the past. To clarify, I'm not calling Froot a liar, by the way. I'm just giving you a reason as to why evidence back there wasn't really a huge deal as it is now. Now, her ex-partner actually did have a post of his own too. It reads, "So pretty soon Apricot and Sync's Patchworks is closing down. We'll be having a closeout sale soon to go with it. Reason for that is our resident artist, BS Apricot, my wife, decided to cheat on me with another man while I was deployed overseas this past year. I was unable to provide the love and care she needed because I myself was going through tough times because of the army. So she found it elsewhere and continues to take advantage of everyone that flocks into her general direction. She got rid of that man after he bought her gifts, and I'm sure there will be others. I found out because that man came forward to me with evidence because he did not know she had lied to him about our relationship status, so props to that man. There are still good people in this world. Anyway, if you're planning on buying anything right now, don't until the sale gets posted. Pick related." It's much shorter, and again, with no evidence, it's a he said she said situation. But looking at how he was behind the scenes, he really should not be trusted at all with whatever he said here. He's an absolute piece of work and should never ever be trusted, and that includes his shitty "she cheated on me" attempt at slander. Also, you can see himself here kind of victimizing himself. Anyway, there is but one more thing I have to address before I conclude this video on Froot and this situation. People have said that she used to be on 4chan a lot back in the day, and there is apparently evidence that she has said slurs, including transphobic comments about her trans brother around 2018 after she had presumably stopped being in a relationship with her ex. There is unsavory, unlikable stuff here from 6 years ago. I even checked with a Discord ID checker, and this does seem to check out that it is Froot's account. However, I have to remind myself of one simple thing. This was 6 years ago, when she was young, just 19, and recovering from a toxic situation where she admitted that she had become a carbon copy of a homophobic man's political views as a defense mechanism to prevent getting further verbally and emotionally abused. Around the end of 2018 to 2019, there is pretty much no more evidence of this bigotry. It pretty much ceased, and those that have watched Froot and support Froot in VShojo have not ever once mentioned that she's problematic in any way, considering all this evidence against her was from a turbulent time in her life, one that she has stated that she has regrets, but is thankful that she had the chance to heal and change for the better since joining VShojo and having a supporting community. I want to say this: people do actually make mistakes, especially when we're young and coming into our own being before our frontal lobe fully develops. There's probably some people out there who are getting old just like me and thinking back on our younger selves and going, yeah, I was pretty shitty back then. I know I, myself, wasn't exactly as open-minded as I am now about certain issues when I was a freshman in college. I've said stupid shit that I regret, even though I've since changed. And if you're still young, you may realize that some things you think now may not be quite how you'd like to think or act when you're at least 25. People can change. It's been 6 years, and I do think Fruit's changed for the better since. I think people should respect that, and not drudge up someone's mistakes in the past if they have since genuinely become a better person since then. I mean, even Toby Fox apparently said some really edgy stuff when he was 15, but look at him now with everything he did in Undertale and beyond. Personally, I think Fruit should be allowed to move on. All this hate against her is really stupid, and typically comes from people who refuse to acknowledge their own hatred against women and who refuse to open their eyes and ears about something because of preconceived notions. For those that did go through the document entirely, or even stuck by this entire time, I hope you feel similarly about this whole situation like I have. Either way, I thank you for your time. I'm sure this is a long video, and overall, I just appreciate you spending some time listening to me yap about a situation. That's all I have for now. But feel free to leave your thoughts. Do you think both people are bad, or do you think that we should just all move on? In the meantime though, I want to thank the Gremlins and Fancy Gremlins for their support. I was out in Japan for a bit, and then I got sick, and now I'm having scuffed PC issues, but I appreciate the patience for real. Also, we just had my birthday, so I hope that I got to see some of y'all during those streams. But if not, feel free to check my VOD for the pre-birthday yap on YouTube. Until next time, everybody, this has been Saph, your silly Nephilim, and I'll see you in the next video. Keep it vibing, y'all. Bye!